dyslexia, fiction faculty here at George Mason. I know many of you. I am going to introduce our first reader. I first met Esther Okonkwo in fall 2018 when she took my graduate workshop at the Iowa Writers Workshop. Pre-pandemic, 2018 feels like a different time, so my visceral memories of that workshop are few. But I recall the beauty of Esther's writing and how in our conference she talked about the moral concerns of her short story. I admired her then, and now I'm delighted to call her a friend. Originally from Lagos, Nigeria, Esther now teaches and lives in Michigan. Her first book, a novel titled The Tiny Things Are Heavier, was published this summer. Esther, we're so glad to have you here for the book. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much.
Rotate it up.
I think this is perfect. Good. Great. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much, Alexa. Yes, just 2018, and now we're here 2025. Time flies. Today I'll be reading from my novel titled The Tiny Things Are Heavier. This is my debut novel, and it follows a young woman named Sami who comes to the US for grad school just a few weeks after her brother attempts suicide. I think of this as a coming of age story and also an immigration story. So this excerpt that I'm going to read is of Sami's first few weeks in the United States, and I just thought, we're in an institution, so we're going to see her as she navigates her new institution and as she tries to connect back home to those she's left, and specifically her brother. So her brother is like the kind of antagonist of the story, so she thinks about him a lot, and we're going to also see that in this excerpt. The semester begins snail-like. Syllabuses are read. Expectations are laid out. At the Reading and Writing Center, where Sami is assigned to work 10 hours a week, no one signs up for the first week. She sits there 5 times a week for 2 hours, watching the other consultants click away on their laptops. Back when she received her admission letter, she spent long hours dreaming of doing exactly what she's doing. Walking down the formidable hallways of the department, clutching large classics, her face serious and learned. She was even going to get into coffee. She was going to be one of those people whose days did not begin until they had a sip of coffee. America was going to wash away her former self, her lazy self, her waiting around for magic self. She was going to be renewed. But she's here, walking the hallways, clutching the books, and even drinking coffee she buys from a cafe a few blocks down the departmental building. Yet she feels unrenewed. She feels like she's filled with mold and cobwebs. Bayo's demeanor is a mirror opposite, so Bayo is her roommate. She comes home to find him with his nose buried in a book, his head so filled with ideas. I did not come to America to count polls, he says. He has plans. He already started looking at summer internships, started eyeing jobs for when he graduates. He has responsibilities, he tells her. He wants his sister to come to America for university. He wants his brother to comfortably pursue his graphic design dreams. He wants to buy his mother a house. It's how her brother, Maisie, always laid out his plans. Growing up, he'd been so certain he was going to be somebody. And that was how he said it: I am going to be somebody. He was obsessed with autobiographies, especially those of famous athletes. He spoke to her of drive, ambition, excellence. He always had plans to develop a gaming app, plans to start a real estate business, plans to become a shoe designer. His interests were disparate, his goals singular: wealth. and he talked about a near utopic future where she, Somi, would know no lack. She liked listening to her brother dream. He spoke with such certitude and criticality that she too began to dream with him. She dreamt of his Ikeja mansion with a pool and a gym and a simpering gate man. She dreamt of his G-Wagon, black and glossy. Mostly, she dreamt of him bursting with accomplishments, his swagger shining, his heart at rest. She did not need to dream for herself. Her path was laid out for her. When she was about 10 years old, her mother declared that she would be an English teacher. Even then, Somi could sense that this decision had nothing to do with her abilities. Being a teacher was to her mother a thing to do alongside the primary identities of a woman, wife, mother. Somi sauntered into her mother's ideal future with the glacial smoothness. After graduating with a BA in English literature, she taught English for a year at a public secondary school during her national youth service. There, she quickly realized that she hated teaching. The monotony of it, planning lesson notes, grading assignments, attending staff meetings. The part of the job she liked was her daily banter with her students. The overly ambitious ones, serious with schoolwork, ever ready with questions for her. She loved entertaining them, teasing them. She loved that they were still at the age where they were allowed amorphous ambitions. I want to be a scientist, an astronaut, a rich man, they exclaimed. And it sustained her. This part of the job until she completed her service year and decided to do something else, to find what she liked. She applied to all the jobs she was qualified for. At a bank as a cashier, at a pharmacy as a receptionist, at an oil and gas company as a marketer. She wrote the test, went for the interviews, but the rejections piled. And each time she told herself it was okay. It was okay because her brother, Mizi, was abroad, working, and his dreams would materialize, and just being near his glory would be enough. Of course, there remained the pinching thought that she'd not learned to dream, to love something, that she'd subconsciously held on to the unspoken promise that if she played her part, stayed in school, graduated, avoided getting pregnant, she'd somehow get what she wants from life. Safety, ease. And she'd done it all, even if with cold impassivity. Mizie's deportation and then his suicide attempt revealed her fragility. There was no glory to sharing. She stood now at the bottom of something deep, waiting to be pulled out. She knows better than to tell Bayo to slow down, to unburden himself. Like her brother Mizie, he's defined himself around his responsibilities. It's what makes him somebody. Without this pursuit, he'll become Mizie after his return. Zombie like Mizie, looking for a way out Mizie. So just like she'd done with her brother, she sits and listens to Bayo talk and plan and dream. She doesn't say to him that the pursuit of the saving one is martyred on. She doesn't say, what if you fail? Or what if you think you failed? The semester cramps up in the third week. All her three professors assign a full book a week alongside essays. She can't keep up, she's always behind. She thinks surely the professors had at some point attended graduate school and understand the impossibility of the tasks they dish out and do not expect them to be all shimmery with knowledge and comments during class. But she's wrong. Her classmates raise their hands during class discussions and speak eloquently about biopolitics and postmodernism and deconstruction. They use words like Anthropocene and phenomenology. They reference Foucault and Derrida and Latour. They stand in the hallway and talk about books they've read, books she's never heard about, and essays about this critic or that critic in the New York Times and the Atlantic. It doesn't exactly look pleasant. These conversations they have in the hallway about books and essays, it seems always like a contest of literacy, all of them trying to shine the next person. If someone mentions Tolstoy, the next person mentions Dostoevsky, and the other person reaches further down history to excavate an older Russian, say Pushkin. They go round and round until somehow they arrive back in the 21st century, where this critic has written a not-so-refined essay on the latest successful commercial novel. Around the 5th week of the semester, Somi finds herself wanting desperately to be part of this club. That's why she left home, to do something with herself, to find her passion. She wants to reference Russian writers, as though she's read them all her life. She wants it to be worthy of the sacrifice of leaving her brother behind. So she starts to raise her hand in all her classes, especially in the theory class. She picks up the gestures of the smart, speaking fast and with a pinched expression. She makes passionate hand movements. She read somewhere that it creates the appearance of intelligence, in the same way that a pair of glasses does. She learns to always quote different theories, whether or not their purported theory relates to the discussion at hand, and to make sure to start every contribution with, "It's interesting how," or "What I found interesting is." It's how many of her smart classmates begin their contributions with the word "interesting" sandwiched somewhere in the first phrases. She also makes sure to read every text carefully and then search for their summaries on YouTube. She practices her delivery in front of her Samsung camera. She goes to the Goodwill nearby and buys 2 of each of these: short skirts, long-sleeved crop top, plain t-shirts, jeans, tights and boots, and 2 pairs of thick sunglasses for some edge. Once, in a class discussion about Nietzsche's On the Genealogy of Morality, she vaguely strings together a Toni Morrison quote on goodness, something related to the human tendency to stand in awe of evil. "It's telling," she says to the class. "Nobody does a documentary about good people, like everyday good people. It's always the serial killers." The professor nods thoughtfully and then goes on to link Somi's point to an earlier Foucault reading. Somi is pleased with herself, and she writes this. Her hand is always up in class, and sometimes when she speaks, she feels the sun radiating past the blinds, past the heads of her classmates and pouring all over her, a great beam of bright light. But on one densely hot afternoon, while the class sits discussing the Kantian sublime, Somi, feeling moved to speak, repeats one of Kant's arguments. She says that she'd enjoy reading Kant, that she found his anxious repetition and overemphasis endearing, and thought of him as a man interested in having his arguments understood and not just revered. To Somi, it's the most eloquent of her class contributions. And after she's done speaking, she takes a sip of water from her bottle, infusing in every movement the elegance of a world-class orator. It's after she's placed the bottle on the table that a chubby-faced brunette says, "I think what Somi's trying to say is that Kant's distinction of the beautiful and the sublime is vague." The girl nods as she speaks, senselessly chewing the bottom of her pen. The classroom sizzles with murmurs of agreement, and a minute passes before Somi says, "I didn't know this was a translation class. Glad that someone here speaks African." Somi's show comes to an end after this episode. Usually, after someone says their contribution, another classmate breathes thoughtfully and then says, just to go off on said person's point. But after her exchange with the brunette, none of her classmates go off on her point. She's not referenced or rebuffed or even translated. It's the same in her loneliness class, her favorite of all 3 classes, where she's taking a small comfort in the stories of loneliness that her classmates shared. They all felt isolated. Why? They couldn't say. Social media, they postulated, the rise of diet culture, productivity culture, the do better, be better culture. They blamed capitalism and racism and neoliberalism. They blamed poverty. They blamed the President of the United States and the President of the United Nations and the Red Cross. Somi left every class feeling guiltless, able to pin her roving acute sadness to an external cause. But when the Nadia arrives, it eclipses everything. And even in this class, where she had felt solidarity, she wants to scream. She wants to say, "Everyone, shut up, please shut up." She stopped raising her hands in all her classes, stops caring about looking edgy, about her boots and short skirts and sunglasses. All day she craves sleep. And even that is sometimes difficult to achieve. So she takes to masturbating furiously. It nudges her to sleep. The sad belly their orgasms. And sometimes she jerks away. And sometimes she jerks awake, certain that a supernatural wind has defied the signs of time and space and has brought her brother Mizzie's voice to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. That was a vivid and haunting flashback to graduate school. Brilliantly done. Everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you to Fall from the Book for putting on another wonderful festival. Thank you to our bookseller, who you should all check out when we're done with the event. And thank you to the creative writing administration in Art and Greg, and to our prose colleagues, and to Esther and Jeff for being here. I first met Jeff when we were at the Republican Convention, covering it in 2024. I'm not going to tell that story, but asked me about the pin that I was wearing, ironically, and how we ended up becoming friends. It's haunting and good too. Jeff is a fantastic writer who I think is really wonderful to bring to this program, because he's, in his literary taste and his craft, someone I deeply respect, but who's taken a different path to this moment in his career and to his creation of nonfiction and fiction than the kind of traditional MFA one. He's been a working and successful freelance journalist, magazine publisher, record label musician, or record label producer, and most of all, incredible writer for the past 20 years. You can find his essays and his long-form journalism in venues like ESPN, and recently coming up, the New York Times Magazine, or the New York Times for a profile that he's working on now. But most of all, his, I can't recommend enough his new book, Waiting for Britney Spears, an allegedly true story. You can ask him all about it afterwards, which he'll be reading from tonight. So everyone, please join me in welcoming Jeff Weiss.
Thank you so much, Esther. That was amazing. So, a little preface before I read from this book, which it's a long story. But basically, when I was out of school, I didn't go to graduate school, but I desperately wanted to be a writer, and I had no idea how to get there. And I thought I would just write a novel, and then people would just shower me with fame and fortune and approbation. Nothing of the sort happened, so I had to get a job, which did not turn out well, and I couldn't find one anywhere. And my mom was serving Craigslist one day, as neurotic mothers do, and she says, "You have to apply for this job." And I was like, ugh. And it was being an entertainment reporter, so I wrote this ridiculously false email about how I was best friends with Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan and the Olsen twins, and then they called me into this magazine. I have no idea what it is. I was hoping it was Entertainment Weekly. It turned out to be Star Magazine. And I was 21 years old, and I showed up in a suit and tie, and they're like, "What are you doing?" And they hired me immediately, because I realized pretty early on they were looking for someone to kind of lie and finesse them, because they were a bunch of finessers and slight con artists themselves. And I hated the job every second of my life. I used to call up my mom and be like, "How could you let your only son do this?" And she was like, "You're not a serial killer." And I was like, "Spiritually, I'm serial killing you." And then I don't want to say I rose through the ranks, because I would be giving myself a little bit too much credit, but I figured out how to kind of hustle these bozos that I was working for, and that's a long story, and it's in the book. But I basically met this one paparazzi guy who was world renowned at the time. And he gets me a job at People Magazine. All right, so I go to an interview at People Magazine, and I think, this is it. My whole life is in front of me. Finally, I'm going to cross over to the world of semi-reputable journalism, and I'll wind up at Rolling Stone and the New York Times and blah, 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 these great places. And I'm working, by the way, at this point by day at a business newspaper, and also wearing a shirt and tie. I don't know why. I'm the least shirt and tie person, but that was how it started. And my first assignment for People Magazine was it was the Iraq War era, So I don't know if you guys remember the Dukes of Hazzard adaptation. It might be a little before some of your time, but it was starring. If you need any reference, it was starring Willie Nelson, Jessica Simpson, Johnny Knoxville, and the greatest actor of the 21st century, Stifler from American Pie. And so I'm going down to Camp Pendleton in San Diego, and I get into the worst traffic jam ever, and I completely botched this assignment. And I'm like, oh, my career is done. It's over. I will be in the trenches of the tabloids and these like low-level business newspapers for eternity. And I begged them for a second opportunity. And so the following Friday, I get a phone call, and they're like, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, whatever you guys want me to do. And they're like, well, this is what you're doing. You're going to lead a 3-person paparazzi team and go to Brad Pitt's mansion up the coast of Santa Barbara, where he and Angelina Jolie are hosting a birthday party for her 3-year-old son. And I'm like, hosting a paparazzi team? I don't even know anything about this. But I said yes, because I'm desperate to work at People magazine. And I'm about to read you a little segment from what turned out to be the worst day of my life. But remember, as a writer, you can always launder your terrible tragedies through literature. True or false? A strange calm washes over me as I park in the public lot at the state beach. Ambling onto the sand, I head south along the breaking waves and serrated rocks. It's one of those Southern California afternoons that gives you temporary amnesia. The sun, fixed in midday arrogance, turns the Pacific Ocean into a sheet of canary diamonds. A sparkling complacency sets in. The type of day where you can't help but get caught slipping. It's such a picturesque afternoon that I put my binoculars in my back pocket and go for a jog. Caveat, People magazine insisted that I bring a pair of binoculars, which I did not own. Apparently you can buy one affordably at a CVS near you, so FYI. While I'm at it, I might as well take off my shirt and go for it and acquire a tan on the clock. It feels so soothing that there must be a catch. I'm getting paid by the most popular magazine in the world to exercise on this Elysian beach. I'll scope out the scene, head back to my car, hang out for a few more hours, get high, and eat a gourmet feast on the company dime. Weaving in and out of the coves, the tide keeps rising and sand seeps into my socks. After about 2 miles, I reach my final destination. Brad Pitt purchased this $4 million postmodern castle right after marrying Jennifer Aniston. And it's patrolled by, well, it appears like nobody at the moment. The first thing I notice is a quaint wooden picnic on the beach. A do not trespass sign looms at the base of a cliff leading up to the estate. In the other direction, another dirt path twists away from it, heading up towards a scenic bluff covered with ice plants. Without giving it much thought, I follow the path that does not promise a potential assault, criminal prosecution, and a lifetime ban from AMC theaters. After all, I've just gone on a pleasant amble from the state park. I haven't hopped any fences or crossed any barriers. I'm just another shirtless taxpayer with every right to enjoy the charms of this seaside nirvana. When I make it atop the bluff, I take out my binoculars to bear dazed witness to the golden dream. Just you, me, and Angelina Jolie, outstretched in a black string bikini on a Shea lounge. I behold a trompe l'oeil that briefly deceives me into thinking that I am in possession of the millions required to purchase this patch of soil with a paradisal angle of the Pacific. To know what it would be like to walk out onto the sun deck on a lazy Saturday in late summer and find Angelina Jolie waiting for me like a complex empress. And it's at this exact moment that 4 goons on ATVs swarm me. Get down, hands up! A man with a Glock 22 tucked into his khaki shorts yells at me with a hacking Middle Eastern accent. I leap up, swooping my head to look to escape, but there's nowhere to run. I drop back down to the grass, hands to the sky, stomach sticking to my soles. I feel like dying. The tightly wound man with a pistol seems to be the leader. He has an aquiline nose, flat marble eyes, and cropped hair the color of apple cider vinegar. His henchmen grab me. One torques my hands, whether to strip me of wallet, keys, phone, and binoculars. They hand it over to the enraged man who scans my driver's license, debit, gym, and discount cards. And I say I like to deal at the time. Where's her camera? Give me your camera. He shouts at me. You'll have to forgive my accent. I just am bad at them, but I have to be realistic to the mode. I don't have a camera. They shove me onto the ground and lift up my jeans, running their hands under my socks. He looks at his men and asks, "No weapons?" They shake their heads. The security guards wear polos and khaki shorts. They have bulging muscles, black holes for eyes, and a whey protein blood type. You might as well tell the truth because we'll find out anyway. The security chief lowers his voice from first-degree murder to manslaughter. Look, man, I don't know what's going on here. I was just hiking at the state park and took a rest up here. How do you explain this? He holds up the fucking binoculars. I'm a bird watcher. Cut this is all true, by the way. The most true part of the book. Cut out the bullshit, we know you. We've been watching you for months. We saw you across the highway with your accomplices. Accomplices, mister. I'm parked at El Capitan State Beach. I love birds. If you let me go to my car, I can show you notebooks filled with poems. This is what I do. I'm only going to ask you this once. Who do you work for? I shake my head silently, terrified. Just let me put on a shirt first. Whole time, shirtless. It's very weird. They nod. I can't believe this is actually happening. I keep ransacking my brain for things to say to possibly win my release. Please, sir, I don't know what's going on or whose house this is. I just want to go back to my car and leave and never come back. You show up here on a red alert day and expect us to believe you stumbled in from the park with binoculars? This is a load of shit. This is a public beach. I walked here from the state park literally next door, and I'm being unlawfully detained, and I demand to be let go. You're past the mean high tide line and are trespassing on private property. You're making a big mistake. You are a good liar. He laughs cruelly. Maybe the authorities will believe you. The Santa Barbara County sheriffs are not into poems of birds. But one thing all cops are into is celebrities. They love busting them and getting their names in the papers and accommodation down at the station house, taking the rich and famous down a peg, reminding them that only the law is above the law. A welcome interlude from their usual repertoire of DUIs and casual harassment. Of course, the next best thing is saving a celebrity. You're a hero now, doing your part to help nourish and support America's most valuable resource. Maybe they'll take your liking to you and give you a non-speaking line in the movie as a favor, or at least hire you as off-duty security. Angelina Jolie has retreated back into her city-state on the hill. She's replaced by a pair of deputies who arrive within minutes. This is no regular 911 call. They struck down a cliffside path with cowboy cop swagger, mesmerized by the views afforded you when you play Achilles in $180 million adaptations of the Iliad. The house is hedged in by palm trees that look like exploded fireworks. The landscaping bill runs more than the cops make in a year. Not bad, they nod. I respectfully disagree. This is very bad. Unholy curse based on your lineage. My skull feels like a struck gong. My rotator cuffs are sore from being yanked. I stare at the white gold water, thinking about my refugee ancestors, cramped in the steerage quarters of leaky transatlantic ships. Only for me to meet Joe Black under such dire circumstances. It's the feeling of getting caught cheating on a final exam and knowing that you're going to flunk the entire class. I'm visualizing my mug on teasers leading into the commercial breaks. People, paparazzi, popped at Pitt's Palace. Extra! So you're the bird watcher. One of the sheriff's deputies approaches me after speaking with the head of security. I like monarch butterflies too, but it's off season. I don't think you'll be able to see them from the county jail. He's in his early 40s with a shaved bullet head, ruddy face, and storm-drained eyes. His chin is fleeing into his neck. Listen, bro. The other deputy steers me away from pit security. None of this needs to be a big deal. Cooperate, and you'll probably avoid probation and only have to pay a fine. But you're gonna need to tell us who you work for. I'm not working for anyone. I was hiking a state park. I had no idea this was private property. You can tell your ridiculous story to a jury, see if they believe you. In these situations, you revert to instinct. Any sign of weakness can and will be used against you. Panicking will only make it worse. Am I under arrest or am I free to go? "We didn't say you were under arrest," says the one who keeps on threatening to go human. Little things happen, they take me to, we're gonna get a statement from the gardener. He says he saw you across the highway this morning, reading a book this morning. Or across the highway, reading a book this morning. You're not allowed to read past the high tide line? The gardener disembarks from a golf cart. "Yes, sir, that's him. That's the guy," I watch him say. One of the cops scribbles notes and smiles with an Undertaker's charm. The other one keeps on telling me that it'll be fine, but I should think about lawyers. At that moment, who should appear but none other than Mr. Smith, Tyler Durden, the 12th monkey himself, who was actually more on his Floyd from True Romance game today, wearing a V-neck white tee, shorts, and flip-flops. Everyone halts at attention to salute El Capitan. One of the cops gives Pitt a, "I got this," finger point. At first, Pitt barely pays attention to the scene, heading to his Guinness beer dispenser to crack open a cold one. Once he does, he appears to realize what's going on. That I'm the paparazzi diabolique. He removes his designer aviators and reveals the countenance that sold 100 million magazines. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Mickey Mantle shredded matinee idol. His skin is perfect. His expression is wrenched with disgust. He shakes his head slowly, confidently, letting me know that I've lost.